No system is perfect. All I can say is that capitalism has uplifted and taken billions of people on this planet out of poverty. Hello and welcome to the Happy Money Podcast. Does socialism work or have a chance in this country? Now, the reason why we're tackling this topic today is because my son Michael and I just got back from Italy. Michael, how was the trip? Did you like the trip?
Did I like the trip?
What did you like about the trip specifically?
So I think my favorite part is going to the piazzas, and every other corner there's a coffee shop, and you kind of feel obligated to get coffee every hour to an hour and a half. So I was talking to a buddy of mine recently, and he goes, "How many did you have a day?" I said about 6. And he goes, "Wow, you had 6? That was your record?" I'm like, no, that was 6 a day.
Average. I just think the country's beautiful.
It
And
is.
the reason why we wanted to tackle it, because I kept hearing from you, "Dad, how is a coffee only €1? And when we go out to dinner for 8 of us, how are we only spending €200? When we just went out for sushi the other night, there was 8 of us and we spent $300
So mad
on
at
some pieces of sushi and some ramen.
Yeah.
How does that even make any sense?" But before we start, I need to read and to define what socialism actually is. And then we're going to list some examples in our country of what it is. So socialism is a political and economic theory of social organization which advocates that the means of production, distribution, and exchange should be owned or regulated by the community as a whole. Does that make sense?
I mean, it sounds good in theory, right?
Sounds great in theory.
Everything sounds good in theory.
Some of the examples: public utilities, healthcare, Medicaid, Social Security, housing subsidies. Now, people think that the U.S. is strictly a capitalistic society, but all those things that I just mentioned, what's the one recurring theme that they all have in common? And if you don't know the answer, I'll share it with you, then I'll get your thoughts. They're all more expensive than they should be. Socialism raises the expenses. It does. There's no incentive. Charlie Munger says, "Show me the incentive and I'll show you the result," right? I mean, think about the incentive. There's no incentive in healthcare to keep the cost of Medicaid down because it's not their money. It's our money. Yeah. That's the problem with socialism. So when I look at it from that perspective, we sort of need to have it in certain sectors because we can't have something run purely capitalistic. Let's say that, the public utilities go down. Well, I'm bankrupt, can't get electric to somebody's house. So I know there needs to be a blend, but what were your thoughts in Italy on how that society and how that economy works as opposed to ours?
Well, the first thing is there's a reason why things are cheaper. There has to be, because the government taxes you to death. They're paying for all these different things. And that's great and all that they've got a great healthcare system. When you're being taxed 60%, 50%, and then you got to pay an additional, this is what I think is crazy, okay? Is you have 50, 60% income tax after everything's said and done. When an employer pays an employee, he's paying some crazy amount of 30% in some sort of tax somewhere. And then you got to pay an additional 22% VAT sales tax. And so at the end of it, it's
what's a VAT sales tax?
VAT tax is the European version of the United States sales tax. And so we in Florida have 6%, and then there's an additional county. Each county has 1%, 0.5%, or nothing. And for everything in Europe, it's 22%.
22%.
Yeah.
Now, I need to rewind something that you just said. Great healthcare. My cousin Guido in Italy, when we were there, he had to have a procedure done in the hospital. It took him 2 months to book the hospital room, and it was a pretty serious surgery that he had to have. It's not like you've got a problem, we're going to rush you in. No, it's you got to wait 2 months first to have the tests done and then get the results, and then another 2 months to get it done. So, hey, it's free, but you may be dead before you actually get yourself operated on. So you have to understand that. And the other thing that really bothers me about the system, Michael, we love to shop. We love to go buy clothes. We love to go buy shoes. We bought some nice shoes, didn't we? I mean, some sweet shoes. But what did the guy in the shoe store say? What was his taxes he was paying from the stuff he was selling?
Overall, it's 60% by the time everything's said and done. And that's, again, going back to VAT tax, going back to sales tax. You get taxed on your income, and then you get taxed on things you buy. And so overall, it comes out to be 60, 65%.
What about the other frustrating thing that we saw? You see something on the shelf you like, you're just praying to God, say, "God, please have my size." Because they don't have enough stuff in stock.
No.
Because there's no debt involved. They have no economy. There's no velocitization of the money. And that's the problem. So they can't stock inventory. And this is everywhere you go, in every store. Like you find something you like, then you find out they don't have the size because they can only keep one or two. And hopefully, if you get lucky, we got lucky a couple times, right? We got a couple of good suits. But, talk about that. Isn't that frustrating as well that they can't stock and they don't have enough money to actually buy inventory as well?
Yeah, it comes back to the socialist economy, which is, you have what you have and you can't get more because it costs too much. You get taxed too much. You don't have enough up in your pocket. You can't pay your employees. You can't pay for more inventory. It's just a cycle that we don't really have here.
So give me some of the differences between our economy, their economy, the way we live here, the way they live there. What were some of your thoughts when you were there?
So there's a reason why people come to this. The whole joke now is Italians saw Venice, they saw Florence, and they decided to move to New York and New Jersey. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But there's a reason why they did that. And the Italian people that live here will tell you, we left because there's no work opportunity. And if you do, like I said, you get taxed to death and you live, on almost nothing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you come here because there's more incentive to work. You're going to be able to keep more money in your pocket. You can actually make more money here. There's an incentive for business. You get good tax deductions, you get good tax breaks, and you can make a decent living here. And so there's a reason, like I said, why people come from Italy and they go to here.
When we were there and we were at that restaurant Assunta and the place where they had the trout there. We had a great lunch that day. We were there for like 4 hours having dinner on Sunday. And I was actually talking to my cousin Sylvia's husband, and he doesn't make a lot of money. They just make enough money to basically live. And I'm going to get into that in a second. But something that really struck me was that he used to be a professional rugby player. He likes rugby. So he had to get permission from his boss to have a quote unquote second job to be able to be a rugby coach. It's illegal in the country to have more than one job. So the problem that I have with socialism is a couple-fold. Number one, they control you. Do we have license over our own bodies or our own thoughts where I can't go out and get another job? I'm working 40 hours for you, Mike. The rest of the week is mine, isn't it? I mean, if I'm performing for you and doing the 40 hours a week, great. If not, you can fire me. The problem with their system is that they don't employ enough people because once you're employed and you're full time, you have license. Once you can leave, you'll get massive unemployment. It'll cost so much money for the employer to pay for that. So they don't hire people full time for the long term. They're like part time for 8 months or 10 months and they let them go. I also want you to talk about, and we realize this, me and you, the stigma that Italians don't work hard. And I think the socialism makes them work even harder. Because when you go into a coffee shop, there's not 5 baristas like they have at Starbucks.
You've got one guy pumping out coffees like nobody's business.
Wasn't it amazing how hard they actually work?
Yep.
Or even when we went to the piazza and the marketplace where there's 3 people in this food truck and you have 30 people waiting online to get fried calamari, to get buffalo wings. You guys didn't like the buffalo wings. I loved the chicken there. It was unbelievable. Or the porchetta, the pig sandwiches. But they're working by themselves, the 3 of them, trying to serve 20 people. So the irony is socialism doesn't create a lot of jobs, but for the people that are working and they can't hire, they have to work even harder. And I think the customer service is not as good because you don't have as many employees.
It always strikes me. Can you imagine if you had the Italian country with all their food and their tradition with our somewhat economy? Like imagine how much they would be thriving. But again, you're missing out because there's no incentive to do anything.
What was your favorite part of the trip?
I really enjoyed traveling around. I think that's what, but we were in your mom's town for 9 days. We stayed there in the house and then we did a little pilgrimage all throughout the cities. And I love their food traditions because I always hear from people. I went to Italy. I can eat all the flour. I can eat all the bread, all the dairy. And they come back here and they feel terrible. And so there's something there that also needs to get talked about in American culture, which is we've completely destroyed our food system because we're allowing enriching flours. We're still allowing all these crazy seed oils that shouldn't be here. And we're getting rid of food dyes, but I think we have bigger problems than just the food dyes. There's something about the European style of eating that they can eat pasta, they can eat bread all day, multiple times a day, not even bat an eye. And then you come over here and you have 1 plate of pasta and you're out for the day.
That's interesting because when we were there, I agree with you. I actually ate pasta and I actually felt pretty good.
You feel fine. You don't feel sick.
When I'm here, I don't indulge myself in pasta. I sort of stay away from breads. I sort of stay away from pastas. Over there, I enjoyed it. The pastries there are phenomenal. And I think you're right. And it's part of this of the government. that's something that's very near and dear to that culture is their food and their food system. So it's all really, and I don't want to say it's all organic, but it's all local. That's something that we should be able to have to strive here, where the government actually uplifts it. But it seems as if the government is not a conspiracy, but it seems as if the government's getting people sick. And then all of a sudden you're getting people sick, and then we have healthcare here. I don't think that's the European model. I think the European model is their culture it's so interwoven into the fabric of what they do. The Italians, they love food. That is part of them. Food and religion and family. And that's one of the things that I really hate about socialism is over the last 50 or 60 years, you've seen the birth rate go down. And there's a reason why the birth rate's gone down and people don't want to talk about it. It's not that this generation doesn't want to have kids. It's that they can't afford kids. That's the issue.
Yeah.
When you're making €2,000 a month, how can you afford to have 2 or 3 kids? We were there. I was very fortunate. We've got a big family. I could afford a lot of these things. They just can't afford to have children. Yeah. And something has to happen in that economy. I'm not sure what it is, because you see what happens there. The prices are so low there. But then, I'll give you the example of the flour. How much is a bag of flour there? And how much does it cost once we have to bring it over here? Or even coffee to bring it over from our area to from their country to our country.
Yeah. You can buy a kilo of flour there for €1, which is about 2 pounds of flour. But again, it's not this crappy enriched stuff you're getting. This is flour that they use. And I've always trusted it because they're not doing anything to it because it's illegal. And again, if you go to Italy, like I said, and you eat all the flour, you eat all the pasta, even people who are gluten intolerant go over there and they eat it. And it makes you wonder, what are they doing differently? And how can we do that here? But the problem is that our food system goes so far back into the line where I took a course from a supplement company, and the fundamental problem is the way we do our crops is we turn over our crops too quickly. We don't allow the soil to readjust, and that screws up the whole process of food. And so unless we fix that problem, we can't do that.
Could you see yourself living there?
I think about, and if I was going to go there to work, no, because I'm not going to have any money left, right? But maybe in 10 years, if I get enough stocks paying dividends and enough real estate paying income, who knows? Maybe I'll find a way to go over there for a little bit.
Do you think the average American could adjust to that lifestyle? Because it is a slower lifestyle. Yeah. There are less opportunities. Now, if you're working and you have a job and you can work remote, or you have an Amazon store, or you do have real estate here, that's something different. But do you think like your friends or anyone in our family could just pick up and go, I'm going to go move to Italy?
I think they would get bored very quickly. It's a very different lifestyle. It's not a go out and go get it. You kind of have to have something work-wise in place to where you can actually fill up your day, right?
Wasn't it amazing though, going to the churches during the day and at nighttime, going to mass and just sitting there? It was a really nice way to recharge, really nice way to slow down. And I hope we can incorporate that. We are incorporating that more in our lifestyle here. You don't have to go all the time here. We can incorporate certain parts of those elements in that culture and the way they do things and just bring them over here. And I'd like to shine the light to anybody listening to this. It's a great lifestyle to live. If you're not used to doing that, it's just a great way to unplug a little bit. There's more family. Sundays are spent together. Nothing's open on Sundays. They close early. In the daytime, they work from like 9 a.m. to like 1 o'clock. And then at 1 o'clock, they close down. They open up at 4 o'clock because they go home and have lunch with the family. These are the smaller cities. My mom's city did that. Yeah. The larger cities don't do that. But I just found that to be refreshing. When you're younger, you don't really think of these things. But as you get older, it's like, wow, what a great lifestyle that is.
Yeah. Well, again, the point of work is to live your life. The point of work is to work so that you can be able to live your life and do the things that are not work. Right. And so the Italians have that down, maybe in some aspects a little too much, but I would argue the Americans also are the opposite extreme, is that there's the constant go, go, go mentality, which eventually it makes you wonder, like, what am I doing this for, right?
I think you sort of you can get used to that. And I'll give you an example. When we were living in New York and we wanted to do something in New York, building a house, getting something fixed, it could be pretty instantaneous because it is a go, go, go kind of place. When we moved to Florida, the first couple of years, it was a lot different in North Florida. Like it would take 2 weeks to get somebody to come out and fix something, and they weren't really all that good at it.
Yeah.
Now, COVID sort of shifted things because all of a sudden, competition, people coming from North, moving to Florida, things changed a lot. And that may be sort of the same way in Italy. If you're deciding to go there, if you want to experience that, it may be an adjustment process. And you may say to yourself, let me just, embrace it. And that's what I ended up doing in Florida. At the first couple of years, I was driving me nuts. But I can't change that. I can either adapt or I can leave. And that's why I enjoyed this last trip this time, because we didn't run around as much in the beginning.
No.
We basically hung out for the whole week. Morning, go out to the coffee shop, go out to the pastry shop, go out to lunch, come back home, and then at nighttime, just go back out to the city and walk around and enjoy it. And I think that's part of the lifestyle, and that's a great way. If anyone's looking to recharge, anyone's looking to take a break, it's a great place to go and to do that. So as you see the difference between our country and Italy, what do you think some of the benefits are in our system compared to that country? And then I'll give some of mine, and then I'd like to hear some of the things that you think of are some of the negatives with socialism.
Well, again, like we said before, it's interesting how you have more of an incentive to work here to make money. Again, I'll go back to their tax system. The tax system, I will argue, is insane for the rest of my life. But there's more incentive to work here. And no, it's interesting, right? Because in Italy, you do have that slower lifestyle, which people think is attractive and it's good. Again, I just go back to imagine those two countries kind of merging both of their ideas together. How much better our country would be and how much better would their country be?
And anything negative about socialism, about the country itself, about how it's run, about what you saw there?
Yeah, again, like you have no real personal rights. You have no real personal freedoms. Here in America, we have property rights. We have firearm laws. There's a reason why we have those. Just look at countries like Cuba. They were a thriving economy. They got all their guns taken away, and now they're freaking communists. You know what I mean? So there's a reason why we have some of these laws in place. Italy just doesn't adapt to that mentality, right? And so you have the problem is we have the house in Italy. We got to have the cousins go check on it every week or two and make sure there's nobody living in there, right? And so that's a huge problem, especially when the government is not going to come in and help you out with that, right?
I think a lot of, especially Italy, and I'll give you my mom's town for an example. In L'Aquila, it was founded in the late 1200s. 99 wealthy families came together and they decided to form the city. So the first thing they did is they built the church. So we have 99 churches. Then from the church, they build the piazza. They have the piazza. Then they have 99 fountains, because that was symbolic back then. And then from there, they built the little towns around it. So L'Aquila was a fortified city. And that was how the wealth was concentrated. So basically you have the upper class and then you have the lower class. And that's how I see it right now in Europe, and especially Italy. You have the really 1 or 2%, and then you have everybody else. And it's really hard for everybody else to get up to that 1 or 2%. Whereas in the United States of America, you do have the wealthy, the Jeff Bezos of the world, the Bill Gates of the world, the Mark Zuckerbergs, but they didn't have to start there. They could have accumulated their wealth. They could have come here as an immigrant like my parents did. They had the opportunity to make money and they can move up. And you know what the great thing is? If you don't want to do that here in the United States, you don't have to. You can live in an apartment. You can buy a small little house. You can work here 40 hours a week, and you can live a good lifestyle. It's all up to you. It's all up to your decisions. And I love that. I think the things there that really make me sad is they don't have an incentive and they have no creativity. When you walk into these churches, they took 100 years to build. And you say to yourself, this is incredible. Like, they couldn't do that nowadays.
No.
There's no creativity. There's no incentive to do that. Like, you look at these monuments, these churches, the stuff that they built. Socialism does not allow to build stuff like that. There's no incentive to make something so beautiful. And if it does, it's going to cost so much to do it. And it's going to take so much more time. So I like looking at the parallels. I like looking at the differences between capitalism and socialism. No system is perfect. All I can say is that capitalism has uplifted and taken billions of people on this planet out of poverty. Whereas what we've seen, what's gone on with socialism imbued in a certain way in an economy does work. But if it takes over the entire economy, you see whether it's Venezuela, you mentioned Cuba, a lot of these places that start talking about the means of production being owned solely by the state, and then you have no rights. Does that system actually flourish? And that system built for the individual, or is it built for the state? I'd rather have it as our system. It's built for us. We the people. We the people should decide what we want to do with our lives.
Yeah. And it's interesting. You mentioned countries like Venezuela and Cuba. Let's think about something like China, for example. China's gotten to the point now where they have a limit on how many kids you can have. Or at least do they still have that? Is that still a thing?
I think they might have lifted it only because they've realized the demographic problem that they're in right now. They've got an older population. They don't have enough young people working. And that's why the rest of Asia is starting to explode, whether it's Vietnam, whether it's Korea, because that's where the workforce is going. They don't have enough people in China.
Yes.
That was a problem. They were controlling too much.
Well, the original point I'm making is the problem is you go from a country that was maybe thriving at one point, government starts to come in and they start to limit how many kids you can have. They got to that point where there was that much control. Can you imagine if Italy got to that point, or the United States even got to that point where you can only have X amount of kids or something crazy like that? Like, does that sound like appealing to us as a country? Like, of course not, right?
That's a great way to end it. I loved how you said it. Just answer that question, open a question. Is that appealing to you? Ultimately, the problem with socialism is you run out of other people's money. Well said by Margaret Thatcher. Michael and I want to thank you for spending a part of your time with us, and we'll see you on next week's Happy Money Podcast. Take care, everyone.